Welcome to Brian Lehrer Live, where web video meets the issues. Tonight, diagnosing the McCain health plan. Is the mainstream media on the case? Also tonight, blogging about Brooklyn. It's fun, but does it pay the rent? And the Greenmarkets, a far-out 70s idea about relating to farmers, becomes a real alternative today.
$32,000? Read it and weep. That's what all this so-called food you're buying today truly costs.
But first, here are this week's online video picks. Number one is an Obama for President commercial, chosen first in a competition by MoveOn.org. Let's see the winning Bamagram.
I'm a veteran. I served under President Ronald Reagan and under the first President Bush. I've been a Republican since before I could actually vote. We need somebody in the White House that is strong. We need somebody that's going to represent the left and the right, the Democrat and Republican, everybody. I'm a lifelong Republican, and I'm voting for Barack Obama.
MoveOn.org Political Action is responsible for the content of this advertisement.
Then there are some slightly more aggressive videos that Obama supporters are making, like this one from Brave New Films about a different candidate's pastor problem.
Islam is an anti-Christ religion that intends through violence to conquer the world.
And I'm very honored today to have one of the truly great leaders in America, a moral compass, a spiritual guide, Pastor Rob Parsley, who is here.
The fact is that America was founded, I'm going to stagger you right now, America was founded in part with the intention of seeing this false religion destroyed. Muhammad received revelations from demon spirits, not from the living God.
I want to say thank you for being here. I want to thank you, Rob, for your kind introduction.
America has historically understood herself to be a bastion against Islam in the world.
For your leadership and your guidance, I'm very grateful you're here, sir.
In fact, I'll tell you this, I do not believe our nation can truly fulfill its divine purpose until we understand our historical conflict with Islam.
And I want to assure you, he should be talking, not me.
When it comes to Islam, now the greatest religious enemy of our civilization in the world, it's dangerous.
We were built for the battle. We were created for the conflict. We get off on warfare.
McCain supporters make the point that he only met Reverend Parsley on one occasion at a McCain rally in February, at which those words were not spoken. Hardly the relationship between Obama and Reverend Wright. But video poster Mark Fiore is tired of this whole game.
Once upon a time, there was a place quite inspiring, till a certain campaign did turn most conniving. The USA vanished in a haze of bloviation, replaced by a United States of guilt by association. They started with Obama, a man of leadership and hope, who happened to know a hate-filled dope. Not to mention an old hippie bomb thrower from a dead Marxist cell. Operation Who Do You Know was going quite well. It soon spread to old John McCain, who knew a pastor too, also quite insane. This one was big, as seen on TV. So John sought the endorsement of Huckster Hagee. As McCain tried to keep the crazy man from your eyes, Hillary was filling your tank in a hunting disguise. But she seemed to forget about her own who do you knows, like a communist law firm, Bobby Seale, and rich money throws. Next it was back to the past in a hurry, to rid our history of leaders where scandal may scurry. George Washington's in trouble, for he knew Aaron Burr, loose cannon and killer, a hot-headed cur. Ben Franklin gets the boot with his king-loving son. Paul Revere's finished too, after what his horse left on the run. So keep up your guard, be good round the clock, lest we stick you for a crime your neighbor did down the block. Just fess up and tell us what sins you've abetted, so we'll live in a nation that's fully vetted.
To defend against guilt by association, candidates should point out that no two people, no matter how close, agree on everything.
understand that I was born on a Friday.
No, you're born on Saturday.
It was a happy hour, I thought, was the...
No, it was no happy hour. It was on a Saturday. I awakened and I told Jack, I've got to go, we're going to have this baby. Well, anyway, this baby came, I think, about 11 o'clock. Well, anyway, the club was very close by. I'm told that on the table there were 27 bottles of scotch, all presents to Johnny. Well, you might as well enjoy it. All these men had gathered over at this club to celebrate this child's arrival. He was the sweetest, nicest child I've ever known. I think he'll make a wonderful president. Well, he's not perfect. Did I say that?
He doesn't pay enough attention to his mother, I think.
No, I'm happy with it. I have no complaints.
I'm John McCain, and I approve this message. And my mom does, too.
That McCain spot serves him so well in so many ways. First, it says, Mom's still alive at 95. I'm not going to die on you. Second, it says, Mom's still sharp and saucy. This is an example of marbles by association. And third, it says, hey, I have a white grandmother too. But as Groucho said, why drag the Civil War into this? Finally tonight, one blogger who goes by Flies in the Kitchen has sharp eyes. She noticed something Brave New World-like in a tape of a Fox 5 segment.
Right now on Fox 5 News at 10.
Back we are now with a Fox 5 News exclusive.
A message of hate found at a...
Fox 5 News at 10.
Back we are now with a Fox 5 News exclusive.
A message of hate found at a popular hotel in Times Square.
Fox 5's Linda Schmidt with the story that you won't see anywhere else.
Now, no way, almost certainly not, are those flashes of the McCains a subliminal message from Fox, a technical glitch, almost to be sure. But the fact that the video went viral, more than 300,000 hits watching that, suggests there's a lot of people who want to catch Fox red-handed being unfair and unbalanced. And that's our online video picks for this week. This is Brian Lehrer Live, where web video meets the issues, and John McCain wants consumer choice. Barack and Hill want universal coverage. They all talk about health care, but is that just another oversimplification from the mainstream media, choice versus universal coverage? Is anyone in the press really checking the fine print? With us to help sort out the complexities of healthcare policy and how it's being covered this election year is CUNY professor Trudy Lieberman. In addition to being the director of health and medicine reporting at the CUNY Journalism School, she also covers health issues for the Columbia Journalism Review, their campaign desk. Now, to get us started, let's look at a recent campaign ad on healthcare from John McCain.
I'm John McCain, and I approve this message.
There's many, many solutions to this problem.
Bold solutions for America's healthcare mess. Straight talk to provide portable, affordable healthcare. Require millionaires to get off prescription drug subsidies. End junk lawsuits that tax consumers. Lower prescription drug prices through importation programs. Bold new solutions, not tired old politics.
So haven't we gone over this health care ground before, like during every election cycle? Is this year any different? Trudy, welcome.
Thank you.
And is this year any different?
Yeah, it's different in a lot of ways. There's a lot more energy and interest from the public than we saw in 92, 93, 94 when the Clintons came to town and tried to reform health care. So I see that there's a lot more interest at the ground level. People are interested because healthcare has become a big problem for them.
But people were interested then, too. The reason the Clintons went at it, one of the reasons, is that there had just been that special U.S. Senate election in Pennsylvania in 1990 or 91, where Harris Wofford, a Democrat, won an election, surprised a lot of people by winning that special election for U.S. Senate. He was this kind of mild-mannered, you know, academic, sort of, you know, people would have called him pointy head or something like that. But he won the election because he was so focused on healthcare. And already in the 1990s, the early 90s, people were suffering through the same things that we're suffering through today, only not as much. Healthcare was not available to everyone. There were a lot of uninsured. People were starting to be nickel and dime to death by their co-pays and deductibles. So is it just that it's gotten worse and worse and worse in the same direction, and now people are even more ready to deal with it?
I think so. I think more people are affected now than they were during the early 90s, and I think one of the things that we see is a loss of coverage, particularly the employer-provided coverage, which of course is the bedrock of our insurance system in the U.S. So as more people are having those costs shoved onto them, they're getting very, very concerned about it. And of course, premiums are a lot higher now than they were in the early 90s. Managed care, for whatever its faults was able to control some of the costs for a while. And they didn't succeed, and the costs have risen astronomically, and people are feeling the pinch.
Healthcare economics is an incredibly complex field. Very often you push over here and you have to pull over there. And we don't get it. We certainly don't get it from a 30-second spot from any of the candidates, certainly not in that John McCain ad. If he talks about choice, choice is a code word for all kinds of other things. But even when Clinton or Obama talk about universal coverage, even that comes with a lot of caveats. We'll get into some of them that mean a lot of different things than people realize.
Well, there's certainly been a lot of codes being used in the discussion, and it kind of breaks down. Each one of the candidates, the three remaining candidates, really have their own code that they've been using. For McCain, he's been talking about the U.S. having the best healthcare system in the world, and of course some of the evidence is definitely to the contrary. Clinton has been talking about universal coverage, and Obama's been talking about he doesn't take any money from lobbyists. And certainly that is not true. He takes money from all kinds of special interests who do lobby the government. So I think there's been a lot of codes being used, and it's very difficult for the public to understand what's behind them.
Let's talk about even the phrase, which sounds like mom and apple pie, universal coverage, right? We all want everybody to be covered with health insurance, but that doesn't deal at the top line level with the rising cost of health care. You know, I made some rough notes. If we all get MRIs for every sprain, we all get LASIK surgery instead of a new pair of glasses, dental implants, daily medications for more and more things, with all this new technology available, does the usual healthcare debate, when we say universal coverage, take that into account, take into account the cost implications for ordinary Americans?
No, I think the word universal coverage has really been misused. The term really means in countries that have national health insurance systems where everyone is covered as a matter of right because they're citizens, that is true universal coverage. What's happened in this campaign is that the candidates that believe in more people having insurance have been able to shoehorn their meaning into the term universal. And Clinton's certainly done that, and Obama has certainly done that. In Obama's plan, his coverage, trying to get to universality is much less than hers.
Well, but even Clinton would make individuals responsible if they're not covered by their employer or by some other system, Medicare, Medicaid, but they would be required to buy health insurance. Now, that may not be government coverage, like in Canada, say, but can we call it universal?
Well, that depends what your definition of universal is. Is it 94% of the American people? Is it 90%? Is it 85%? And if you start mandating it, which is what she proposes and which the state of Massachusetts has done, you can reach some level of coverage and almost be universal.
We can get close. But even, you know, One word that we don't hear from anybody is ration. But the reality is that each one of these systems rations health care in some way. And it's a question of which form of rationing you prefer. So under the current system in this country, by and large, the insurance companies and your employers ration your health care, assuming you're privately covered. In Canada, the government rations your health care. They make decisions because they can't afford to pay everything for everybody, so they're making what they consider rational decisions about what everybody gets. The difference is that everybody gets rationed the same way in Canada. Different people get rationed according to ability to pay and luck of the draw of what kind of job you happen to have and things like that in this country, right? But nobody's talking about it. I don't hear the campaigns talking about it in terms of, well, everybody has to ration, but we prefer this form of rationing.
That's not being talked about at all, and I think one has to realize that there is no country on this earth that is able to provide all of the care for all of their citizens all of the time when they want it. What happens in Canada and in the UK and other countries is that there's a basic level of care for everybody. In this country, we do ration care, and we ration it to poor people. We ration it to people who don't have insurance. They don't have the ticket to buy the care.
If you're poor enough, you're in Medicaid, and they ration too, because not everything is available with Medicaid, but not everything is available through your Oxford coverage or whatever it is either.
That's right, but we have not really had a discussion of what kind of rationing is going on in the U.S. right now.
Haven't we gone over this health care reform ground before? Like during every election cycle? Is it different? Well, social critic Noam Chomsky thinks this year is different.
For decades, one of the leading domestic issues for the population has been the health care system, which is catastrophic, has twice the per capita costs of other industrial societies and some of the worst outcomes, often third world standards, aside from 47 million people with no insurance and the many millions who are underinsured. So the population doesn't like this, naturally, and they have a preference, namely for a national health care system, maybe something like extending Medicare to the whole population. Well, up until it's very interesting to see how that's handled in the intellectual culture and the media and the political system. As late as 2004, the last election, this was occasionally mentioned, but it was regarded as politically impossible or lacking political support. Those are the words that are used. Only had the support of the large majority of the population. But that's not political support. In this election, for the first time, 2008, it's become an issue. I mean, the Democratic candidates, at least, have put forth proposals which approach what the general population wants. What's changed between 2004 and 2008? Not public opinion. It's the same. What's changed is that a major sector of the corporate system is now objecting to the irrationality, expense, inefficiency of the privatized healthcare system, namely manufacturing industry. General Motors says it costs them over $1,000 more to produce a car in Detroit than it does across the border in Windsor, Canada, where they have a functioning healthcare system. Well, when a major sector of corporate power enters the game, then it becomes politically possible. It tells us a lot about American democracy, as does the fact that there's no reporting on it.
That was a fascinating comparison by Chomsky, and I never heard that particular one until that video, comparing GM's own plant on the U.S. side of the Canadian border with their own plant on the Canadian side, where, of course, the Canadian government covers the huge expense of the health care for the workers. That's making a company like GM now want to get rid of the burden and take the risk, I guess, of some other form of health care, maybe even including government health care, which they've always been against in the past. Are you familiar with that example, and do you see corporations for the first time now saying, get this monkey off my back?
Some corporations, but not all of them. What we have is that small employers particularly have really had a tough time of it because they have so few employees and the costs of covering such few employees is really pretty high, especially if they've had illnesses or their spouses have had a serious illness. So many small employers have dropped their coverage, and this was really not the case 15 years ago. Some of the bigger employers, however, still want to be in the insurance game, and they want to be in for this reason. They believe if they still have some control over health care for their workers, they can help improve productivity, and that's why we're seeing all these disease management programs and sort of keeping tabs on their workers to try to improve the productivity. So I think it's not quite right yet to say that they all want out, but I think a growing number probably are trying to say that let's do something else. But rather than have the government take it over, the direction of the political discussion seems to be have the worker take it over.
You've written about McCain's health care plan and media coverage of McCain's health care plan. When he talks about choice, do you think the general mainstream media is doing a good job of deconstructing what choice really means?
No. The mainstream media really haven't done a very good job throughout this whole campaign. There have been stories, there have been a lot of stories, but what's happened is that they have picked up all the codes and peppered their stories with some quotes and reaction quotes, but not a lot of specifics. And in the case of McCain, as well as some of the other candidates, there's been very little explanation about what their plans actually would do. And we haven't seen very many stories about how people would actually fare under these plans. We saw a lot more of that in 93, 94.
Choice means, to a large degree, putting the burden, as well as the choice within your means, on the individual, right?
Correct.
Part of McCain's philosophy is that healthcare costs are going high because we have all these third-party payers, meaning the insurance companies are footing the bills, Medicaid actually paying the bills. That makes us as individuals not ask the price of things. Just think that we can go willy-nilly and get every MRI, get every expensive operation, get every whatever, and cost isn't a factor. So that costs will come down and ultimately more health care will be available, his theory is, if we get the responsibility to go ask the doctor every single time, go ask the pharmacist every single time, how much does this cost? And then bargain with them. Why not?
Well, I think you have to decide whether you think the market in healthcare works like other markets, and I think there's a lot of people who don't believe that it does. Getting healthcare is not like buying a car, a toaster, or an iPod. It's just not. The decision to buy an iPod is not the same as getting an operation. If somebody tells you you need an operation, are you going to sit there and start bargaining over price? You're going to try to find somebody.
Or go to a doctor you don't know who hasn't been your doctor and say, well, this guy will do it for $3,000 less.
And usually when you're sick or have been given a devastating diagnosis, it's not the time to get out the books and start looking at comparative ratings and all of that stuff. You really need to have trust in somebody, and people most of the time are going to be trusting the doctor that they've dealt with.
We will see during this campaign year, once the Democrats actually have a nominee, how this goes. Because if you think, and I know you know this, if you think the Clinton versus Obama health care debate has been contentious, wait till you see the Clinton or Obama-McCain health care debate, right?
Exactly. It's going to be a really interesting 6 months.
Let's hope we all do a good job in this business covering it. Trudy, thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is Brian Lehrer Live, where web video meets the issues. Now, last week, Brooklynites came together once again for their annual Blogfest. With 200 people in attendance, it made us wonder, is blogging hitting its stride? In fact, is there finally a revenue web stream? Can people make money as bloggers? Let's watch part of a video that was shown at the Blogfest. It features Brooklyn bloggers and was produced by Blue Barn Pictures.
Brooklyn is just this huge magnet for creative people. It's a mixed bag of people who are all really, really passionate about at least one thing.
I got a lot to say, You know, it's a perfect medium for somebody that wants to incorporate a lot of different interests. You know, I'm a fine artist by training, but I do like to write. I like to do photography, and I like to explore my neighborhood. So I guess you could say that New York City is a repository for all of that work.
I started Gowanus Lounge a couple of years ago because mainstream media had pretty much abrogated its responsibility to Brooklyn.
It's basically an information portal, a one-stop location where you can find anything about Atlantic Yards. It kind of takes over your life. You know, like I said, we've been doing this for 4 years, which is way more than we thought we would be doing it, and we would really like to stop, but unfortunately, the Atlantic Yards project has not been stopped yet.
I've gotten very involved with our neighbors, and I've started going to community board meetings. I would have never gone to community board meetings before I started this blog.
It's certainly changed the experience of living in Brooklyn because I'm starting to walk around looking at things through the eyes of what I might put on the blog that night.
I'm trying to cover every street in Bed-Stuy, and I've discovered all kinds of amazing things, and I would never have done that if I hadn't started writing a blog.
I guess I have a real estate fetish and a renovation fetish, and I ran out of money. Instead of buying another home to fix up, I needed to put my energy, I needed to focus my energy on something. I couldn't afford to get another house, so I decided to start a blog and help other people do it.
So with us now to talk about the maturing of the Brooklyn blogosphere are Louise Crawford of Only the Blog Knows Brooklyn. She organized the Blogfest, and Bob Guskind, who founded Gowanus Lounge and also blogs for the real estate website Curbed. Welcome to both of you. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you, Brian.
Tell our viewers who may not be familiar with it what the Brooklyn Blogfest was and who was there. Do they fit the stereotype of, you know, they were almost all white, almost all male, almost all highly educated?
The Brooklyn Blogfest is a gathering of Brooklyn bloggers. And it was a pretty diverse group. We had over 200 people. And it wasn't all men, and it wasn't all white people, and it wasn't all people from Brownstone, Brooklyn. It really was a nice range of people this year.
You know everybody there?
Not quite everybody there, but an awful lot of the people there, yeah.
Was there a theme of this year's Blogfest that emerged from people's interactions?
Oh, you know, I think that, you know, one of the themes is that people are reading our blogs and we're having an impact on the discussion in Brooklyn and on issues in Brooklyn. And there's a great diversity of subject matter that we all write about. I happen to focus on neighborhood blogging and a lot of the stuff that deals with development and quality of life and other community issues. But there are people who, you know, blog about music and blog about recipes, and yeah. It's a very diverse field.
There actually was a theme. It was called Place Matters, Blogging My World. And by that, it meant we were doing neighborhood blogging, but we also had citizen journalists. We had special interest bloggers, you know, with all sorts of food, photography. And we also had what I call the quirky creatives, people who are blogging personal blogs and artistic blogs and things like that.
Now, this place blogging, that's basically people blogging about their neighborhoods, right?
Yes, yeah. And there are so many of them. I mean, I have a list of 100 people who signed in with all Brooklyn this, Brooklyn that, street names, neighborhood names.
Will people blog about, like, one block? Or how?
There is one called First and it's pretty hyper-local.
It can be that micro in focus. I mean, I think most people tend to cover a slightly larger area than one block, but it's very localized coverage, and that's the beauty of it.
So you had a Bed-Stuy blogger?
Yes, we had Petra from Bed-Stuy blog. We
Clinton
had
Hill.
Clinton Hill, Flatbush, Sustainable Flatbush, Flatbush Gardener, bloggers from Greenpoint, bloggers from Williamsburg.
Bob, we've got an
lots
image.
Of Carroll Gardens.
We've got an image up here that I think is yours, yes?
Yes.
Tell us.
That is the Lakeside Center in Prospect Park, the new ice skating rink that's been proposed for the park, and that's an early rendering. And some people like it, and some people have had some negative reactions to it.
So this is one of the curbed slides from the real estate blog Curbed, or is this from your other one?
Actually, it's from both. I used it both on. It's of enough interest to everyone that I used it both on Curbed and on Gowanus Lounge.
What's the problem that some people have with it?
The cost and the design. It's something whose cost has doubled over time, and as it's become a more ambitious project, and some people didn't like the preliminary, and I have to say that's a very preliminary design, and the final product could be a lot different.
Louise, you also work for the Brooklyn paper.
Yes.
Murdoch owned. We should mention, but do you see?
No, Murdoch doesn't own the Brooklyn paper.
Oh, he doesn't.
No.
I thought that was
the
down
Courier.
the chain. Owns the Courier,
yeah.
The competition.
Yes.
Brand X, not
exactly.
yours.
No.
Okay. Nevertheless, do you see local place blogging and local community hard copy newspapers kind of merging in any way?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, the Brooklyn paper comes out on Friday, and usually all the stories in the Brooklyn paper have already been covered on the blogs. At this point, what the Brooklyn paper can do, and they do it very well, is in-depth reporting on things that they already know have been broken on the blogs. It's frustrating for the editor. So, I mean, for him, it's a constant struggle to find news that the bloggers haven't uncovered yet.
Now, Bob, you have actually broken through to the point where you make a living as a blogger. Is this true?
Yeah. I am a full-time blogger since last fall with Curbed. I'm their Brooklyn editor, and I'm trying to turn Gowanus Lounge into a money-making venture as well.
How do you make money from what?
As am I.
How do you make money from a blog?
Advertising. The same way a newspaper and television and radio.
The same way Google does, right?
The same way Google does.
Stripe down the right side for the most part?
Definitely. Almost literally, actually.
Are you also a full-time blogger?
Yes, I'm a full-time blogger and writer. It's sort of all the same thing.
Do you also have to then be an advertising salesperson?
Haven't really been. That's Bob and I were just talking about that. We're about to embark on the big bad world of advertising, and it's a big step.
Who sells the advertising for your blogs?
I need to find someone to sell the advertising.
Anyone out there want to sell advertising?
Curbed, this is a job opening?
Yes.
At Curbed, we have a full-time advertising staff.
OTBKB is looking for someone to sell advertising, so is Gowanus Lounge.
2 or 3 people.
You better give those web addresses because you'll get some applicants.
Only the blog knows Brooklyn.com.
www.gowanuslounge.com.
As a full-time blogger, how many times a day do you blog?
I post on Gowanus Lounge, I post 20 to 25 posts a day. On Curbed, about 10 a day. So my total output is 30 to 35 posts a day.
How about you?
I blog 10 to 20 posts a day. I start at 6 in the morning. I start slow. I sort of send it out there as the day progresses.
When do you wake up?
I wake up at 6 with my son as he's getting ready for high school.
And while he's getting ready for school, you're blogging?
While he's in the shower, I'm blogging.
Today it's Rice Krispies and toast.
Cocoa Puffs.
Yeah. Right. And the world wants to know this.
Oh, I don't actually blog about his breakfast. But maybe I should.
Well, you never know if it's an interesting breakfast. So
start with the weather.
And how long is if you're blogging 20 times a day, you're blogging 35 times a day, how long are these posts?
Some are quite short.
Yeah, short is good.
Some are 1 or 2 sentences, generally
a photo.
with a photo. Some are quite long. You sort of continue them inside. They can be up to 300 or 400 words, but most are 50 to 100 words.
If your output is 36 times a day, how do you have time for input, to learn the stuff that you
it's a challenge.
Need to know to blog?
It's a challenge, Brian. There are only so many hours in a day, and when you're so busy creating output, it's hard to find the time to do the input. It's a balance that's hard to find.
How about you?
I'm doing 10 to 20 posts a day, and I'm reading a lot, and I'm getting tips, and I'm out and about. Sometimes I'm just walking around and I go, oh my God, there's a story.
Is there an industry standard? If, to run a successful blog, people have to expect fresh material from you X times a day.
We're kind of figuring, I think we're like the people who are figuring it out on our feet. I do think my readers like to check back in all day.
Yeah.
So they like content as the day progresses.
I live blogged last week the Indiana and North Carolina primary results, right, as those returns were coming in last Tuesday night, and we set it up for WNYC that I would be live blogging for 90 minutes from 7:30 to 9, which we thought, and it was the heart of, you know, the results. And if I didn't post every 5 minutes to maybe 10 minutes in that window, I thought, well, I'm dropping the ball here.
I think that's a different kind of blogging, and certainly there are things that go on that you have to blog with that frequency.
Because that's live blogging,
if we,
right?
No, if we've got a big story.
Continuous coverage.
If we have a big story, the tornado of last summer or the transit strike, or you're blogging all day with information that's coming in.
When there's breaking news, you know, you're doing that sort of updating every 5 or 10 minutes. I would say, you know, in terms of a big blog operation like Curbed, we're generally doing 20 or 25 posts a day. For a smaller blog, you know, 0 to 5 is adequate, but there's something to the regularity that gets the audience there.
At least once a day.
You've got to be up there once a day. You've got to have something to show, otherwise people aren't going to come back.
Now blogs originally were in part a response to the mainstream media being out of touch, being over-commercial-commercialized.
Yeah.
So once you are now supporting your blogs by advertising, and you have to take that into account, are you the mainstream media?
No, I don't think so at all.
We're just making a living.
I don't think that taking advertising or trying to produce a modest revenue stream makes you part of the mainstream media. I think the reason a lot of people, myself included, got into blogging was because we felt, or I felt at least, that the focus of mainstream media was off and that Brooklyn wasn't being covered in appropriate and or thorough ways. Taking the advertising doesn't change, you know, doesn't change that.
I think it can change things, though. I mean, I think you do start becoming obsessed with numbers. How many people are reading me? Which of my stories are people most interested in? I should write more of those.
Right.
And I think when that happens, you lose a little of that authentic blogginess.
Right.
Because it all started with, I don't care who reads me. I don't think anybody's going to read me. I am just going to put this out there. And that was the impulse.
I've seen it with my own stuff.
Yeah.
The most emailed list of your own material is a drug.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Because the most emailed is not necessarily the most important thing that you do.
Absolutely, and you tend to do it with comments, and you know, you fall into this thing, well, that post got 15 comments or 20 comments or 50 comments, so it must be a better post.
It's often the dumbest thing.
That's the wrong sort of rule of thumb to use.
So as bloggers, we're going to have to really keep an eye on our response to these things.
Right. Who would the young bloggers have been a generation ago? Novelists, poets, bohemians in jazz clubs. Who do you think these people would have been? Who would you have been a generation ago?
Oh, you know, Irma Bombeck or Anna Quinlan or all those great columnists at the Village Voice that I always loved. You know, housewife poets. You know, people who were super involved in their communities, at schools and PTAs.
A generation ago, I was a print journalist. You know, that's the way I got into all of this. And, you know, it's interesting because what I wanted to do a long time ago was to start my own publication so that I could do it right and practice journalism the way I wanted to without dealing with a newsroom structure and everything that comes with it. And in effect, the medium of blogging has allowed me to do that, to create my own publication, obviously without the paper and the capital startup costs, but to create a publication that's mine.
It's so fun and it's so exciting to be able to do that.
And I guess one indication of the influence of Brooklyn blogging now is that at the Brooklyn Blogfest, some politicians running for office attended, right?
They not only attended, but they're going to be blogging.
Oh, yeah?
And they get in touch with me early on and say, I'm running for city council.
You mean they're blogging their campaign?
They're talking about it, and they're meeting with me early on for coffee and saying, this is who I am, and can you give me some advice about how to do this blog thing? Because I think that's a great way to reach out to people in this community.
Real quick.
One of the interesting things that's happened over the last couple of years is that early on in this process, people tended to avoid blogs. Politicians tended to be afraid of them. PR people for corporations tended to be afraid of them. Developers ran the other way when they saw you coming. And what has begun to happen over the last 2 years is that you, as a blogger, are one of the first people they come to talk to.
Exactly.
And that includes city council candidates. It includes the smarter developers who want to communicate something to the public. They see you as someone they need to use to communicate.
They're having coffee and tea for bloggers. Were we all supposed to get together?
Face to face?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Oh, yes.
So see Bob's stuff at Curbed or Gowanus Lounge. See Louisa's stuff at onlytheblogknowsbrooklyn.com.
Thank you.
Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And coming up in a minute, salad days for locavores with a green market official and a real-life farmer. This is Brian Lehrer Live, where web video meets the issues.
Watch Canapé, the French cultural magazine show, Thursdays on CUNY TV.
Mama was queen of the mambo, Papa was king of the Congo. Deep down in the jungle, I start banging my first bongo. Every monkey like to be in my place instead of me, 'cause I'm the king of bongo, baby, I'm the king of bongo bong. I went to the big town where there is a lot of sound, from the jungle to the city looking for a bigger crown. So I play my boogie for the people of big city, but they don't go crazy when I'm banging on my boogie. I'm the king of the bongo, king of the bongo bong. Hear me when I come, baby. King of the bongo, king of the bongo bong. Nobody like to be in my place instead of me, 'cause nobody go crazy when I'm banging on my boogie. I'm a king without a crown, hanging loose in a big town, but I'm a king of bongo, baby, I'm the king of bongo bong.
Tick, 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 tick. Massive heat waves. Heat waves. Tick. Severe droughts. Tick, 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 tick. Devastating hurricanes. Tick, 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 tick. Our future is up to you. Tick. Go to fightglobalwarming.com while there's still time.
This is Brian Lehrer Live, where web video meets the issues. And hey, it's spring. Those really fresh veggies and other local foods are arriving at the 47 green markets sprouting up for the 32nd year in all 5 boroughs. The food's great, but have the markets kept their promise of stringing together a green necklace of farms around the city? Joining us, farmer Morse Pitts, who sells amazingly sweet turnips and other crops, some of which you see in front of him at the Union Square Market, and Phil Yatsuk, marketing specialist for the Council on the Environment, which manages the green markets. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Phil, for the uninitiated, and there are probably some out there, what are the green markets?
The green markets are the largest network of farmers markets in the United States. So we operate 47 markets in all 5 boroughs, 7 days a week throughout the city. And they have been instrumental in the survival and the perpetuation of family farming, not only in New York, but throughout the United States. When the green market started back in 1976, there were a total of 5 farmers markets in all of New York State. They are now over 400 markets statewide.
And how many in the 5 boroughs alone?
We have 47 green markets.
That's great. They're all over. The one in my neighborhood in northern Manhattan reached a milestone last year when it went from a seasonal market to year-round on Isham Street.
Right.
So it's growing.
Absolutely. And as Morse will attest, it's been instrumental in the survival for family farms in the city.
What you got there, Morse?
I've got some things that I have at market today. At 10 o'clock last night, I was picking the last of these flowers to put on people's salads, and we use them to make sandwiches, too. It's one of those things that people don't think of because it's so perishable. You can't really buy it anywhere. But if we pick it late last night and bring it early this morning, here it is. And they're very tasty things.
Those flowers, nasturtiums.
Nasturtiums that are in a lot of people's gardens. And they don't even know they're edible.
They're much too beautiful to eat.
I have people that say that they couldn't possibly eat it. It's too beautiful. One person said she felt like a cannibal eating a flower. I don't know what that meant.
Can I taste one?
Yeah, you're welcome to.
Because I have never.
They are spicy.
They are spicy. I had when I've gardened, I use these as part of a non-pesticide gardening program to keep away bugs. Do you use them that way?
Not really. It's just like I grow a lot of different things, and I usually don't have bug problems because I grow so many different things at different times. And I have
it's got a nice little kick. It's a little
lettuce
bit hot.
chaser if you want with it.
Absolutely. Now, tell us what kind of lettuce is this? Maybe people will recognize this is not your head of iceberg lettuce, obviously.
This is a little baby green romaine lettuce that was planted early this spring, and not everybody knows, but the colder it is out, the better salad tastes, the sweeter it is. So if you get salad from California, it's never going to be like salad from the Northeast, especially early in the spring, and even better in the fall.
Right, and this has also got a little sharpness to it.
That's probably left over from the
really?
show.
That's just some aftertaste?
I gave you that so you just sort of clear that off if it was too spicy.
Clear the palate. Yeah. Well, delicious. And does your experience back up what Phil was just saying? Does the fact that the green markets exist help keep you in business as a small farmer?
It's probably my salvation. I'd still be growing things because I'm an idiotic farmer and I'll just keep growing things. But it's probably going to allow me to keep my farm alive after I'm gone. And that wouldn't have been possible. I'm being industrialized out where I am, being taken over by industry, and I can't buy my family out at industrial prices. But I can take my part of that and reinvest it in a farm that's saved by Green Market. And one of the wonderful things about Green Market, it's had so many partners, like the Open Space Institute, that works with it to try to preserve land. So I've got a market for my things and also a possibility of getting land that will always be a farm. So whatever I put into it will be there for the next generation.
We see on our screen the Union Square Green Market, one of the biggest and most well-known. Phil, is this the biggest in the city?
Yes, it is. It's by far the most popular and the flagship of the Green Market program, and it has truly become an institution in New York City and an attraction to tourists from all over the world who come to New York and visit Green Markets.
Morse, where's your farm?
I'm in the lower Hudson Valley in Montgomery, New York, which is halfway between Newburgh and Middletown, and it's right on Route 84 between the Thruway and Route 17, so it's becoming a shipping capital of the universe. It's where bring things in from other countries to sell, to people here. And I'm being chased out of there, but I hope to be only one county further up and still be able to come to Green Market.
I know somebody, I have a friend who commutes from Newburgh to work in the city. So you have that kind of industrialization that you were just describing. You also have sprawl for housing, all of which must put incredible pressure on you because your land value is going up, which is a good thing, but to sell your farm.
And that's just it. And to keep it a farm, it's like I don't own it by myself. I own it with my family. And there's no way I can give them what it costs as an industrial site. On the good side, I'll get enough money from it myself to reinvest in a farm. And farmers are crazy. We just keep putting money into the farm.
But given the real estate values in the entire metro area, is this idea of the green necklace of farms for locally grown food that the green markets are supposed to support becoming impossible?
It takes a very determined individual to persist at farming. Farming's often been described as an addiction that people do despite the returns, despite the challenges. And it's the only way that farmers on the fringe of urban centers can continue. Retail dollar is essential. Selling is the solution for the survival of regional farming. Farmers are quite capable as producers. It's us as consumers who recognize the total value that regional farms provide that are the key to its survival.
Now, vegetables like the ones that Morse has here can be a little pricey, but nothing compared to the hidden costs of industrial farming, at least according to the Sierra Club animated short, The Real Cost of Food. Here's a segment on tomatoes.
They call this monocropping. Looks efficient, right? Not when you look at the hidden costs. Start with the chemicals. When you only farm one crop at a time, a single disease or bug can easily wipe out your whole livelihood. So monocroppers douse their fields with 1 billion pounds of toxic pesticides a year. That's about 3 pounds per American. Pesticides kill everything in their way, including good bugs that make healthy soil. That and other short-sighted practices make the earth lose 24 billion tons of topsoil a year. The monocroppers try to replace real soil with chemical fertilizers. Much of it runs off into our drinking water, along with the pesticides and other chemicals. Agricultural runoff is the #1 pollutant of U.S. rivers, killing entire habitats, decimating wildlife, and contaminating our groundwater. And it's expensive to clean up. But what do the monocroppers care? They get huge federal subsidies no matter how much they produce. A total of $14 billion a year.
Wait a minute. I thought farm subsidies helped small farmers.
Dream on! In 2002, the largest 10% of farms collected 65% of the subsidies. The bottom half got 2%. A paltry $256 a year. Take these unfair subsidies, add other market pressures, and you can see why thousands of small farms go belly up every year. At this point, 7% of our farms sell 72% of our food. And because our local farms are gone, we have to ship non-local produce in from around the country and the world.
I know nobody actually talks like that where you live, and that was the first time you've seen that. Do you relate to some of that as a family farmer?
Oh yeah, it's just what is and what seems obvious to people that farm and actually do it, but it's just wondrous that people don't get that, and that the cost of the food is not what they pay for it, but the health cost to them and the environmental cost to grow it that way.
But let's talk about that. It's such an important concept because when people go to a green market, they generally expect to pay more per pound for the same kind of thing, more for this lettuce, which, by the way, watching that video, eat some more of the lettuce and I got the sweetness in it. It's yummy. But people expect to pay more at a green market than, for industrially grown food at the supermarket. But this is making the argument that it's actually costing us more in the long run. You understand that?
Oh, infinitely more, because you're paying for the health care you need later from eating all the corn syrup, and also the environmental cost of all the, your water being polluted. Farms in the Midwest pollute all the water. Everybody has to pay to have their water processed. It used to be free water. So,
but we have a world food crisis shortage on our hands right now. Can you feed the world through family farms as opposed to industrial agriculture?
Well, it's about eating quality food. It's about making food more available and more affordable. The system that we operate under now is very energy intensive, is very polluting, and it's going to get only more expensive since we rely on farms that are 1,500 to 3,000 miles away or further. So the ancillary costs, the social costs of the air pollution, the traffic congestion, the desecration of our entire landscape is the true cost of what we're paying.
And soon we'll be burning up all the food in our car as biofuels. That video mentioned farm subsidies, and the latest farm bill just passed yesterday. Do you get farm subsidies?
What actually happens is they take my and other farms' tax money to give to corporations to buy our farms. It's ridiculous. They're called farm subsidies, but they're basically, the government's philosophy is that to save people from farming, get people off the land, have factory farms do it.
Because what they tell us is that they're subsidizing mostly small farmers who couldn't make ends meet, with the low margin that they have, or that in some cases they're actually paying people not to grow, to keep the land healthy, or to keep the price reasonable for the farmers who are growing. You don't buy it?
I don't buy it at all.
All fruits and vegetables are classified as specialty crops. Specialty crops are not subsidized. Subsidies go to corn, large corporate cotton farms, corn farms, the mainstays of the commodity market. They do not get channeled at all to the specialty crop farmers, and fruits and vegetables are all classified as specialty crops.
How big is your farm?
The entire farm is 142 acres. I use 15 acres of it, but I managed to keep that farm intact with that 15 acres. I won't anymore because it is being sold for industry, but I should be able to save a farm at least half that size with the help of people like the Open Space Institute. And then, you know, Greenmarket gives me a market, so I have something to put into it, but it takes a lot more
How
than
many
that.
different crops do you grow on 15 acres?
If you count all the varieties of lettuce and so on, it's around, well, over 100 easily.
Wow,
probably
that's a
more
lot.
like 150. And we keep trying new things. And just before we get too far from it, I just want to mention one other thing about food costs. If you shop in season at the market, you get the lowest priced things in the season because it's what the land wants to grow now.
Yes.
Like if you buy a zucchini at the market when it's zucchini time, you can't beat it. And the same with salad greens and everything else. When it's in season, it's cheaper there.
Do you rotate your crops, or do you not have to when you're growing that many?
I rotate within the year so many different things in so many different places. It's like, and I also mix things. I grow everything together. And I have lots of weeds. That's another thing. There's a movie called Farmer John, that wrote dirt about Farmer John. And one of the things he says in it is, well, you can't indefinitely grow vegetables on land because it depletes the land. And I yelled out in the theater, that's what weeds are for. Only a small percentage of my farm are the crops. The weeds are replenishing.
Not all weeds are bad.
Mostly good.
I
just
heard
like
you're
bugs.
skeptical about the label organic.
Yeah, well, more than skeptical. It's basically, it was a word that a lot of people put a lot of sweat and value into and thought, and it was taken to be just a labeling term to raise the price of things. It's really ludicrous anymore.
You mean the government-approved label, organic. So do you think you grow at a higher standard of purity, whatever that means, than the official organic label?
I grow actually without pesticides. I don't put things on my crops that are now labeled organic pesticides, because that's the most horrifying thing. I was at a farm tour on an organic farm with a bunch of people who want to learn now to conventional farmers, and the question over again, what organic pesticide do I use for this? What organic herbicide did I use? I never have. The idea was to grow without that, then you learn what it takes to keep things healthy.
Phil, 30 seconds. With all this pressure for the farmers in the Green Necklace around New York City area to sell, what's the future of the green markets?
It's thriving in large part because people have become aware of the total benefit to food quality, to the environment.
But where will the food come from?
Well, we have a network. New York was once the breadbasket of the entire United States. We still have a significant land mass available to us, and new farmers coming in, and it is being rejuvenated in part by demand from the consumers.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
You feed us all. And that's it for tonight's show. We are here live Wednesday nights at 7:30. You can sign up for our free podcast at CUNY.TV. And please tune into my daily radio show, The Brian Lehrer Show, weekday mornings at 10 on WNYC. Tomorrow morning, what to do on your summer vacation in the year of $4 gasoline. And no, the Barca Lounger is not the answer. That's at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning on 93.9 FM and AM 820 WNYC. Have a great night.